Captain Jake Reeves had seen some impressive architecture during his tour through the Outer Rim, but nothing had prepared him for walking through corridors carved from what appeared to be crystallized starlight. The Zephyrian royal palace defied human physics in ways that made his enhanced neural implants struggle with spatial processing. Each step through the floating citadel revealing new impossibilities disguised as elegant design. "Keep moving, human," commanded Guard Captain Thexmer, his chitinous armor clicking softly as he escorted Jake through passages that seemed to exist in more dimensions than conventional geometry allowed. The Zephyrian's compound eyes reflected the corridor's bioluminescent lighting like living jewels, while his antenna twitched with what Jake's cultural training identified as barely contained amusement. Jake's tactical implants were working overtime, cataloging potential threats and escape routes out of professional habit, even though he knew the exercise was pointless. The palace's quantum phase defensive systems could reduce him to component atoms before his enhanced reflexes could even register the threat. Still, old habits died hard, especially when those habits had kept you alive through 3 separate combat deployments in hostile alien territory. "First human to see the inner sanctum in over a century," Guard Captain Thexmer observed, his translated voice carrying harmonics that suggested this fact carried more significance than casual conversation. "Queen Veilthize must find your presence interesting." Jake wasn't sure if that was supposed to be reassuring or terrifying. Queen Veilthize Morendra had a reputation that extended across half the galaxy, brilliant, beautiful, and absolutely ruthless when protecting Zephyrian interests. Her conquest of the Korgan systems had been accomplished through a combination of military precision and diplomatic manipulation that still impressed strategy instructors at the Human Defense Academy. The summons had come without warning or explanation, simply a holographic message stating that the Queen required his immediate presence for discussion of matters affecting both our peoples. Jake's commanding officer had looked like someone had just handed him a live fusion grenade when delivering the message, along with helpful advice to try not to start an interstellar war through cultural misunderstanding. No pressure whatsoever. Jake's enhanced memory implants replayed the past 6 months of his assignment as cultural liaison to the Zephyrian court, searching for any incident that might have triggered royal displeasure. His service record was spotless. He'd attended every diplomatic function, observed all cultural protocols, and maintained the kind of professional demeanor that had earned him commendations from 3 different species military commands. Well, mostly professional. The memory of Princess Lyranese's laughter echoed through his consciousness, musical tones that seemed to harmonize with frequencies his enhanced hearing could detect but not quite process. She was everything the intelligence briefings had described: brilliant, compassionate heir to an empire that spanned 3 star systems, and absolutely nothing like the cold political calculating machine that royal training usually produced. That was the problem. Jake had been attracted to dangerous things his entire military career: plasma rifles that could explode in your hands, tactical missions with survival rates measured in single digits, and apparently alien princesses whose mere presence could complicate interspecies relations in ways that would make diplomatic historians weep. His solution had been simple: maintain professional distance, decline social invitations, and pretend that Princess Lyranese's increasingly frequent attempts at conversation weren't slowly driving him to distraction. "We have arrived," Guard Captain Thexmer announced, gesturing toward doors that seemed to be made of condensed aurora lights. "Queen Veilthize awaits your presence in the throne of stars. Remember, humans speak only truth before our queen. Her ability to detect deception is legendary." Jake's tactical implants helpfully informed him that his heart rate had just spiked into combat stress levels. Any other advice for surviving an audience with alien royalty? Guard Captain Thexmer's antenna twitched in what Jake had learned to recognize as Zephyrian amusement. Do not bore her. Queen Veilthize has little patience for creatures who waste her time with obvious lies or diplomatic evasions. The doors dissolved like morning mist, revealing the throne room beyond. Jake stepped forward, his enhanced vision adjusting to lighting conditions that shouldn't be possible according to human understanding of photon physics. The chamber seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, crystalline walls stretching away into distances that his spatial processing couldn't quite map. And there, seated upon a throne carved from what appeared to be a single massive star crystal, was Queen Veilthize Morandra herself. She was beautiful in the way that made poets attempt suicide when they realized words could never capture what they'd witnessed. Her gossamer wings spread behind her like captured nebulae, while her bioluminescent skin patterns shifted through spectrums that had no names in human languages. But it was her eyes that made Jake's enhanced neural implants stutter, alien intelligence that had guided the expansion of an interstellar empire, compassion that had earned the loyalty of conquered species, and something that looked suspiciously like carefully controlled anger. Captain Jake Reeves, Queen Veilthize spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that made his translation implants work overtime to process the full depth of meaning. Cultural liaison to my court, decorated veteran of the Proxima campaign, and apparently the first human in recorded history to consistently insult my daughter through deliberate avoidance. Jake felt his stomach drop into what felt like the gravity well of a collapsed star. This was about Princess Lyranes, and from the Queen's tone, he was about to discover exactly how catastrophically his attempts at professional discretion had been misinterpreted. "Your Majesty," he began, falling back on diplomatic training while his tactical systems screamed warnings about the potential for this conversation to escalate into an interstellar incident. "Silence," Queen Veilthize commanded, though her voice remained musical even while conveying absolute authority. "You will speak when I have finished cataloging your failures of courtesy toward my family." Jake's enhanced hearing detected the subtle harmonics in her voice that indicated this was going to be a very long, very uncomfortable conversation. The throne of stars lived up to its name, Jake realized, as he stood before Queen Veilthize while crystalline formations in the walls pulsed with light that seemed to come from actual captured stellar phenomena. The throne room existed in what his enhanced spatial processing could only describe as aggressive architecture, dimensions that folded in on themselves while somehow remaining navigable to biological senses. Princess Lyranes stood to the right of the throne, her own gossamer wings folded in what Jake's cultural briefings had identified as a posture of distress among her people. Her nebula-colored eyes avoided his gaze, though he could see the hurt in her bioluminescent skin patterns even from across the chamber. Jake felt his chest tighten with guilt over that expression. He'd been trying to protect her from complications, but apparently had managed to wound her instead. "Captain Reeves," Queen Veilthize continued, her voice maintaining its musical quality while conveying the kind of authority that had conquered star systems. "You have served as liaison to my court for 6 standard months. During this time, your professional conduct has been exemplary, earning respect from my military advisors and genuine appreciation from our diplomatic corps." Jake waited for the inevitable, however. That would explain why he was currently standing trial before alien royalty. His tactical implants were cataloging the positions of every guard in the chamber, while calculating exactly how quickly he could be reduced to component atoms if this conversation went wrong. "However," Queen Veilthize said, and Jake's enhanced hearing detected the shift in harmonics that indicated the real confrontation was beginning, "your behavior toward my daughter has become a source of considerable confusion and, frankly, insult to our royal house." The accusation hung in the crystalline air like a sword suspended over Jake's career, and quite possibly his continued existence. Around the chamber, Zephyrian nobles shifted with the kind of restrained movement that suggested predators preparing to watch something get devoured. Princess Lyranes has extended numerous invitations for cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, and what your species would term social interaction," the Queen continued, her bioluminescent patterns shifting toward what Jake's briefings had warned indicated controlled anger. "All of which you have declined, with excuses that grow increasingly transparent." Jake's memory implants provided him with perfect recall of every declined invitation: the request to tour the palace's quantum gardens, the invitation to attend a concert of Zephyrian harmonic mathematics, the simple suggestion that they share a meal while discussing human literature. Each refusal had been polite, professional, and absolutely necessary to maintain the kind of emotional distance that kept him from doing something catastrophically stupid. "Your Majesty," Jake began, his voice steady despite feeling like he was standing on the edge of a diplomatic precipice, "I assure you that my behavior toward Princess Lyranes stems from the highest respect for both her person and your royal house. I would never intentionally—" "Intent," Queen Veilthize interrupted, her voice carrying harmonics that made the chamber's crystalline formations resonate in sympathy, "is irrelevant when the result is perceived disrespect. My daughter is the heir to an empire spanning 3 star systems, trained in 17 forms of diplomatic protocol, and educated in the cultural patterns of 43 different species. She is not some naive child who misinterprets social cues." Princess Lyranes finally looked up, her musical voice carrying notes of frustration that Jake's enhanced hearing detected even through the translation matrix. "Captain Reeves, if my company is so distasteful to you, at least have the courtesy to say so directly rather than hiding behind duty and protocol." The hurt in her voice hit Jake like plasma fire to his enhanced nervous system. She thought he was avoiding her because he found her company unpleasant, when the truth was exactly the opposite. Every moment in her presence made him want things that could never work, conversations that lasted until the twin suns rose over Ethros Prime, walks through impossible gardens while she explained the quantum mathematics behind Zephyrian art, the kind of companionship that transcended species boundaries and diplomatic complications. "Princess Lyranes," Jake said carefully, "your company is anything but distasteful. You are one of the most fascinating people I've ever encountered, regardless of species." Queen Veilthize's antenna twitched with what might have been surprise. "Then perhaps you would care to explain why you consistently decline her invitations, while accepting similar requests from other members of my court." Jake realized he was approaching the moment where diplomatic language would no longer suffice. The Queen was too intelligent, Princess Lyranes too perceptive, and the situation too volatile for anything less than complete honesty. His enhanced tactical systems were screaming warnings about the potential consequences, but sometimes the most dangerous course was also the only one that led to survival. "Your Majesty," he said, abandoning the careful phrasing of interstellar diplomacy, "may I speak with absolute candor?" Queen Veilthize leaned forward on her crystal throne, her luminous eyes fixed on Jake with the intensity of someone who could sense that whatever he said next would be either the truth that explained everything or the lie that destroyed trust between their peoples forever. "Captain Reeves," she replied, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the quantum frequencies of reality itself, "I would prefer nothing less." Jake took a breath that felt like inhaling the vacuum of space, knowing that his next words would either bridge the gap between species or create a diplomatic incident that would echo across the galaxy for generations. "I avoided Princess Lyranes because I'm terrified of what my feelings for her could cost both our peoples." The silence that followed was profound enough to make black holes jealous. Every compound eye in the chamber focused on Jake with laser intensity, while Queen Veilthize's bioluminescent patterns shifted through what appeared to be rapid emotional processing. Princess Lyranes's wings fluttered once, twice, then went perfectly still as she stared at him with an expression that defied translation. "Explain," Queen Veilthize commanded, her voice carrying new undertones that Jake's enhanced hearing couldn't quite identify. The word explain echoed through the throne of stars with the kind of authority that had reshaped galactic politics. While Jake processed the fact that he just confessed romantic feelings for alien royalty in front of a court that could incinerate his homeworld without breaking stride. His enhanced neural implants were flooding his system with stress hormones that his military modifications were struggling to process. "Your Majesty," Jake began, his tactical training warring with emotional honesty as he chose words that could either save or doom everything he cared about. "I'm not just a cultural liaison. I'm a combat veteran with neural enhancements designed for warfare in hostile environments. My reflexes are accelerated, my healing is enhanced, and my survival instincts are calibrated for missions where life expectancy is measured in combat encounters, not years." Queen Veilthize's bioluminescent pattern shifted through spectrums that Jake's briefings hadn't covered, while Princess Lyranese's gossamer wings trembled with what could have been shock or something else entirely. The court nobles were exchanging rapid bioluminescent communications, their compound eyes reflecting the realization that they were witnessing something unprecedented. "I avoided Princess Lyranese because every moment in her presence makes me want things that I have no right to want," Jake continued, his voice carrying the weight of months of suppressed emotion. "A future where I survive long enough to deserve her friendship. A universe where the political complications wouldn't tear both our civilizations apart. A reality where caring about her wouldn't be the most selfish thing I could possibly do." Princess Lyranese stepped forward, her musical voice carrying harmonics that made Jake's translation implants struggle with emotional nuances. "Captain Reeves, do you truly believe that my feelings are so fragile that they cannot withstand the truth of who you are?" Jake met her nebula-colored eyes and saw not the sheltered princess he'd been trying to protect, but a woman whose intelligence matched his own, whose royal training had prepared her for complexities he'd never considered. "Princess, your feelings aren't fragile, but mine are dangerous. I'm a soldier whose job involves calculated risks with other people's lives. Getting emotionally involved with you would compromise my judgment in ways that could get people killed." "Interesting," Queen Veilthize observed, her voice taking on analytical tones that suggested she was processing implications at quantum speeds. "You fear not that she would reject you, but that you would fail her. Not that love would make you weak, but that it would make you reckless." Jake nodded, feeling like he was dissecting his own psychology for alien scientists. In combat situations, enhanced soldiers with emotional attachments make statistically poorer tactical decisions. We become focused on protecting specific individuals rather than achieving strategic objectives. It's not romantic, it's a documented operational liability. The throne room fell silent except for the harmonic resonance of crystalline formations processing quantum fluctuations. Jake realized he just reduced his feelings for Princess Lyranese to military statistics, which was probably not the most romantic confession in galactic history. Princess Lyranese's laughter was like music made from crystallized starlight, her wings spreading with genuine amusement rather than distress. "Captain Reeves, you avoided me because you were afraid that caring about me would make you a worse soldier." "Among other reasons," Jake admitted, feeling heat flush through his enhanced circulatory system. "There's also the minor detail that any romantic relationship between us would create political complications that could destabilize human-Zephyrian relations for generations." Queen Veilthize rose from her crystal throne with fluid grace, her alien beauty terrible and magnificent as she processed Jake's confession with the analytical precision that had made her one of the galaxy's most formed. Princess Lyranese's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what Jake's cultural training identified as embarrassment mixed with determination. "Mother, please don't. Lyranese has been studying human psychology and military doctrine for the past 4 months," Queen Veilthize announced, her voice carrying maternal amusement alongside royal authority. She correctly identified your avoidance as protective behavior rather than rejection, though she found your reasons frustrating. Jake stared at Princess Lyranes with dawning understanding. You knew why I was avoiding you. I suspected, she replied, her musical voice carrying notes that his enhanced hearing detected as fondness mixed with exasperation. Human soldiers with enhancement modifications display predictable behavioral patterns when attempting to protect individuals they care about. Your avoidance was textbook emotional deflection. Then why didn't you just tell me you understood? Jake asked, feeling like his enhanced tactical processing had completely failed to grasp the situation. Princess Lyranes's wings fluttered with what was definitely amusement now. Because I wanted you to tell me yourself. Honesty about emotional vulnerability is considered attractive among my people, Captain Reeves. Your willingness to admit fear demonstrates strength, not weakness. Queen Veilthize was watching this exchange, with an expression that Jake's cultural implants couldn't quite decode, though it seemed to involve satisfaction mixed with something that might have been approval. Captain Reeves, do you understand what you have accomplished with your confession? Jake's tactical systems were still trying to process the conversation's unexpected direction. I've either created a diplomatic incident that will echo through galactic history, or I've completely misunderstood Zephyrian courtship protocols. You have demonstrated the kind of emotional honesty that my people value above all other qualities, Queen Veilthize replied, her bioluminescent patterns shifting toward what Jake's briefings had identified as pleased approval. The willingness to admit vulnerability, to prioritize another's well-being over your own desires, to speak truth even when it could destroy you. These are the qualities we seek in those who would join our royal house. Jake felt like his enhanced neural processing had just experienced a complete system crash. Your Majesty, are you suggesting? I am suggesting nothing, Captain Reeves. I am stating that your reasons for avoiding my daughter have proven more compelling than any romantic pursuit could have been. Queen Veilthize's smile was radiant enough to power a small star. Lyranes, perhaps you would care to explain to the captain why his protective instincts are unnecessary. Princess Lyranes stepped closer, her gossamer wings catching light in patterns that seemed to resonate with Jake's enhanced vision. Captain Reeves, Jake, I'm not just heir to the Zephyrian throne. I'm also commander of our royal guard, trained in 17 forms of combat, and enhanced with quantum biological modifications that make your military upgrades look primitive. Jake's tactical implants finally provided him with accurate threat assessment data on Princess Lyranes, and the results were genuinely terrifying. She wasn't a princess who needed protection. She was a warrior queen in training who could probably take apart his enhanced combat systems with her bare hands. The question, Jake, Princess Lyranes said, her voice carrying harmonics that made his name sound like poetry, is whether you're brave enough to let someone protect you for a change. Jake's enhanced neural implants spent approximately 27 seconds processing the revelation that he'd been trying to protect someone who could probably defeat him in single combat while blindfolded and speaking in diplomatic code. The tactical absurdity of the situation would have been hilarious if it weren't so completely mortifying. Princess Lyranes, he said carefully, his voice carrying the kind of respect usually reserved for acknowledging superior firepower. Exactly how much of my protective instincts were completely unnecessary? Her laughter was like quantum harmonics made audible, while her bioluminescent patterns shifted through spectrums that Jake was beginning to recognize as genuine amusement. All of them, Jake. I've been trained since childhood to handle threats that could reduce entire star systems to component atoms. Your concern about my emotional fragility was endearing but misplaced. Queen Veilthize was observing this exchange, with an expression that suggested she was enjoying watching two supposedly intelligent beings realize they'd both been overthinking a simple situation for months. Captain Reeves, Perhaps now you understand why my daughter found your avoidance so frustrating. She recognized your protective behavior as evidence of genuine caring, but couldn't demonstrate her own capabilities without seeming to pursue you inappropriately. Jake felt like his entire worldview was undergoing rapid recalibration. So while I was avoiding Princess Lyranes to protect her from the complications of my dangerous lifestyle, she was waiting for you to realize that I'm perfectly capable of handling dangerous complications. Princess Lyranes finished, stepping closer with the kind of fluid movement that Jake's tactical systems now recognized as predatory grace rather than royal elegance. My concern was never about the risks, Jake. It was about whether you cared enough to let me share them. The throne room's crystalline formations were resonating with harmonic frequencies that seemed to reflect the emotional tenor of the conversation, creating an almost musical backdrop to what felt like the most important diplomatic negotiation of Jake's career, and possibly his life. Your Majesty, Jake addressed Queen Veilthize while trying to process the complete reversal of everything he'd understood about the situation. I need to ask directly, are you giving your approval for a relationship between your daughter and a human soldier whose life expectancy is measured in combat missions? Queen Veilthize's smile was radiant enough to make stars jealous. Captain Reeves, I am giving my approval for a relationship between my daughter and a man whose first instinct is to protect those he cares about, even at the cost of his own happiness. The fact that you happen to be a human soldier with enhanced combat capabilities merely makes you more suitable for someone who commands the royal guard of an interstellar empire. Princess Lyranes moved closer, her nebula-colored eyes reflecting light in ways that made Jake's enhanced vision struggle to process their beauty. Jake, I've been trying to tell you for months that I'm not interested in safe, predictable companions. I want someone who understands duty, honor, and the weight of making life-or-death decisions. I want someone whose first concern is protecting others rather than pursuing personal glory. Jake's tactical implants were providing him with biometric data that confirmed Princess Lyranes's emotional sincerity, though he hardly needed technological confirmation when her bioluminescent patterns were broadcasting her feelings with the intensity of a small sun. Princess, the political complications still exist. A relationship between us would create diplomatic ripples across both our civilizations. Which is exactly why it needs to happen, Queen Veilthize interjected, her voice carrying the kind of authority that had reshaped galactic politics through pure force of will. Captain Reeves, you have spent months demonstrating that humans are capable of the emotional maturity and protective instincts that my people value above all other qualities. A formal alliance between our species would benefit greatly from visible evidence that human-Zephyrian relationships can thrive. Jake felt like he was standing at the center of a political calculation that spanned star systems, except the mathematics involved his heart rather than military assets. Your Majesty, are you suggesting that my relationship with Princess Lyranes would serve as a diplomatic demonstration? I'm suggesting that your relationship with my daughter would serve as proof that love can transcend species boundaries when it's built on mutual respect and shared values. Queen Veilthize replied, her musical voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the quantum frequencies of the throne room itself. The diplomatic benefits would be incidental to the personal happiness of two individuals who have spent months dancing around their feelings for each other. Princess Lyranes extended her hand toward Jake, her gossamer wings spreading in the posture that he now recognized as an invitation rather than a display of royal authority. Jake, the question isn't whether our relationship will create complications. It's whether we're brave enough to face those complications together. Jake looked at her outstretched hand, then at Queen Veilthize, whose bioluminescent patterns were radiating approval and something that looked suspiciously like maternal satisfaction. The entire throne room seemed to be holding its breath, crystalline formations, resonating with anticipatory harmonics, while court nobles watched what would either be the beginning of an unprecedented interspecies alliance or the most spectacular diplomatic miscalculation in galactic history. Princess Lyranes, Jake said, his enhanced tactical systems finally providing him with clear analysis of the situation. I need you to understand something about human soldiers with emotional attachments. Her nebula-colored eyes reflected curiosity mixed with what his cultural implants identified as hopeful patience. I'm listening. We don't just love. We love with the intensity of people who understand that every moment could be our last. We love like we fight, completely, without reservation, and with absolute commitment to protecting what matters most. Jake's voice carried the weight of combat experience and emotional honesty that made the throne room's harmonic resonance shift to lower, more profound frequencies. If I take your hand, if I let myself care about you the way I've been trying not to, then you become the most important strategic asset in my universe. Everything I do, every decision I make, every risk I calculate will be filtered through the question of how it affects your safety and happiness. Princess Lyranes's laughter was like music composed from crystallized starlight and pure joy. Jake, do you think Zephyrian warriors love any differently? Do you imagine that royal training teaches us to care halfway, to hold back emotional commitment for fear of tactical complications? Queen Veilthize rose from her crystal throne, her alien beauty terrible and magnificent as she moved to stand beside her daughter. Captain Reeves, you have spent months demonstrating the kind of emotional courage that makes legends. The willingness to admit vulnerability, to prioritize another's well-being over your own desires, to speak truth even when it could destroy everything you value. These are not weaknesses to be managed, but strengths to be celebrated. Jake felt his enhanced neural implants processing the full implications of the moment. This wasn't just about romance or diplomatic relations. It was about the fundamental question of whether love could indeed transcend species boundaries to create something stronger than the sum of its parts. Your Majesty, Princess Lyranes, he said, his voice carrying the formal cadence of military reporting mixed with personal truth that made the words resonate through the chamber's crystalline acoustics. I accept the honor of your approval and the terrifying privilege of caring about someone whose well-being will now determine the success or failure of every mission I undertake. He reached out and took Princess Lyranes's hand, her luminescent skin warm against his enhanced flesh, while her bioluminescent patterns exploded in cascades of joy that made the entire throne room pulse with sympathetic light. Jake, she whispered, her musical voice carrying harmonics that his enhanced hearing detected as absolute contentment mixed with fierce determination. Welcome to loving someone who's just as terrified of losing you, just as committed to protecting you, and just as willing to face the entire galaxy to keep you safe. Queen Veilthize's smile was radiant enough to power stellar navigation systems. And now, Captain Reeves, perhaps you would care to join us for dinner. I believe my daughter has been planning a menu of human cuisine for the past 3 months, waiting for you to stop avoiding her long enough to accept her invitation. Jake looked down at Princess Lyranes, whose gossamer wings were spread in what he now understood was an expression of pure happiness rather than royal display. You've been planning dinners for someone who was actively avoiding you. I've been planning for the moment when you would stop being terrified of caring about me and start being terrified of not caring about me, she replied, her nebula-colored eyes reflecting light patterns that seemed to contain entire galaxies of affection and understanding. The menu includes chocolate, which I'm told is essential for human emotional processing during relationship transitions. Jake felt his enhanced system flooding with something that might have been happiness amplified by military-grade neural modifications. Princess Lyranes, I think I'm going to enjoy being protected by someone whose tactical planning includes dessert contingencies. The throne room erupted in harmonic laughter from the assembled court, while Queen Veilthize observed the proceedings with the satisfaction of someone who had just solved a complex diplomatic puzzle through the simple expedient of forcing two stubborn individuals to admit they cared about each other. "Captain Reeves," Queen Veilthize said, her voice carrying new harmonics that Jake's cultural implants identified as familial warmth. "I believe this is the beginning of a most promising alliance between our peoples. Welcome to the family." Jake squeezed Princess Larnice's hand and realized that sometimes the most dangerous missions were also the most rewarding, especially when they involved learning to let someone else protect your heart while you protected theirs.